Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. This is Sunday, NFL Week 6, and this is the closing line presented by sportsbookreview.com. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance, and we got an action-packed show and a ton of games here, Kyle, at 1 o'clock. So if we have a pregame show, isn't it better to load up at 1 o'clock and say, hey, yeah, the Jets and the Dolphins are 4 o'clock, we understand, but there still is a really good game at 4:25, but we got a lot of information to go over, a lot of, I'll tell you right now, looking at some of these lines going back and forth, good stuff to talk about, Kyle. Sunday NFL action right here with us today. It's going to be fun.
I'm excited, and I've got like this tingly finger feeling, and I don't think it's a heart attack. I'm pretty sure that's what happens when I feel a winning week coming on. I'm really excited for this week. I got my lucky Darth Vader shirt on, so welcome to the dark side. I'm ready for week 6.
Yeah, I'm wearing the dark side too. We got to go up against the dark side today, the Baltimore Ravens. And if you don't know who I like, you could probably just look at my shirt or any one of the videos that I've ever made here at Sportsbook Review. It's pretty apparent who my squad is, but double digits, and we'll get to that game a little bit later. But welcome in. Kyle, we always like to start first things first here. 71,300 people have hit the subscribe button. Every single time I come on here to do a show, it's up at least 100 people. We want to continue that surge going northward. It wasn't too long ago where I just started to do videos here a couple of years ago, and we were around that 17, 18,000 range, and now up to 71,300. That's not a credit to me and Kyle. That's a credit to you guys actually supporting the broadcast that we put out and the information that we do. Eric is in here. Just EDMs, Derek, Vitalis, Jake, Melissa, Chief, We the People, James, Stacy. Welcome into the show. 100 people watching, 30 seconds into the show, and I'm glad you guys are with us. So let's kick this bad boy off. 1 o'clock games as usual. We're going to hit every game on the card. We're going to go right in rotation, but some of these games in rotation due to COVID are a little bit out of whack, so we're going to make sure we stick it 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, tonight's game, and whatever we have left. So anything you guys got in the chat box, let it rip. Any picks, plays, props, whatever you got going on, this is what it's about, sharing that information and making you a better sports gambler here, right here at sportsbookreview.com. 251, 252, 1 o'clock. Let's get it started here in Charlotte. 50-50 ticket split here in this one. How about this for those Chicago Bears and Carolina Panthers? Now, we are seeing some movement here. Opened up early in the week when we were doing our show on Tuesday. We were sitting around that 2.5 range for the Carolina Panthers. We saw the downshift all week, even as much as this morning, -1s for Carolina. But as I look across the board, offshore at SBRodds.com, Pinnacle -2, Chris -2. Still some outlets in New Jersey, Bet365 at 1.5, but it looks like the prevailing number across the board is at 2 with a total of 45. I'm staying on the same point I have. I think the Chicago Bears can get after the Carolina Panthers and Teddy Bridgewater on the front seven. Now, also flipping over to a defensive side, we know that Carolina doesn't shut down the run all that much, so you're going to get some running room for the Chicago Bears, and Nick Foles will play that run-pass game, and also with Allen Robinson, wide receiver. I haven't changed all week, Kyle. It's Sunday. It's noon. I'm not going to change still. I think the Bears go down to Charlotte and pick up a victory today.
Yeah, and I agree with the line move. I think this is a close game. I think it's tough to call. I got the over at 44.5 earlier. I think both these teams get into the 20s. I know the narrative about the Chicago defense and Carolina's passing defense has actually been better than some of us expected coming into the season. But I think both these teams get in the 20s. I actually like the team totals for both teams, 21.5 and 23.5. I think this is like a 28-24 game. I could see it going either way, but I'm like you. I'm not going to switch. I was on Carolina earlier. I'm going to stay on Carolina now at home, but it's not going to shock me if the Bears win this. I think it's a very close game and a very interesting game by two teams we didn't expect to be a combined 7-3 coming into this game.
Yeah, and I know you want to take a look at the over, and I can't fault you for that. It's going to be nice weather in Carolina. When we're talking about 45s in the NFL, that's really low. A couple years ago, hey, 45, they're going to have to score a lot of points. That's not really the case. And if you can figure on, as what we like to do, put it in its simplest terms, both of these teams can reach the 20s today. I don't want to say fairly easily, but they should be playing into the 20s, which gives you the honest look at 45. Now, I like to look at, you could take a look at the whole season of what they've been doing, the Chicago Bears on offense. You say, well, they leave a lot to be desired, Donnie. Just look at their last 2 games. But, riddle me this. They go to Atlanta. Nick Foles comes in about midway through the game. They drop 30 on Atlanta, who's a really bad defense. They come back in back-to-back weeks, Kyle. I think we can both agree. Indianapolis and Tampa Bay are top 5 defenses in the NFL. So they lose 19-11 and win 20-19. Again, not offensive explosions. So to the naked eye, you're saying, well, I really don't like what Chicago does. It's a different beast that you're going to go up against with a banged-up defensive line for the Carolina Panthers. Nick Foles is going to give you that honest effort. They're going to be able to run the football. He's not going to be under siege all day in the pocket as if you were with the Colts and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming after you with their pass rushes. I agree with the over. I think it gets there on the over 45, but also, again, I'll double down and say I like those Bears, but I can see where people are coming into this because I sort of scratch my head and see the 45, but you say, well, the Bears aren't that explosive. It's really a product of what you play. And also, you can't say, well, Donnie, they scored 17 points against the Giants. That was Mitchell Trubisky days. I look after that and say, you know what? They're going to get a breather, nice weather, don't have to worry about too many windy conditions. I believe the wind, Kyle, 5 to 6 miles an hour, negligent in this one. I think they can get the 45 in this game too.
Yeah, me too. It's actually one of my pick six plays over 44.5. And look, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts are exponentially better defenses than the Carolina Panthers. And you mentioned the warm weather, no wind. Teddy Bridgewater's looked great. Robbie Anderson's looked great. Mike Davis has looked really, really good filling in for Christian McCaffrey. I think these guys put up points. I like a 28-24 game. It's tough for me to decide which way that's going to go. I'm leaning Carolina, but for me, the bet for me in this is the over the points. And because of all the points you made, and K'Wan Short being out on the front seven for Carolina is going to open up room for David Montgomery. You probably see a better game out of him. I think this game's a lot of fun. It's one of the more interesting games to me. Maybe that Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, of course, early in the morning. But I like this game, and I think it'll be fun to watch, and I think it hits the over.
Good friend James Stacy says low scoring Bears win by 3, but Frank Alexander counters by saying Carolina over 45. So that's what you see. But immediately when I looked at that 45, I want to try to find a way to angle to get over. And we're just looking for some competent football. But also keep in mind, you have 2 competent quarterbacks in this game. These aren't really explosion guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Nick Foles where, oh my God, 13 for 31. What the hell they do out there? They have some weapons to work with. And again, the Chicago Bears defense is going to put pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, which sometimes can be a good thing on the over. Because typically, Kyle, you say, well, wait a second. If they bury him in avalanche, he's athletic. He can get outside. They have weapons that if you give him an extra second to get deep, a la Robbie Anderson, they can do some damage. And also Mike Davis out of the backfield. These 2 teams should be able to score. Again, I preface this. Would be shocked, Kyle, at 17-14. Not shocked at 24-21, which gets you around that 45 number here. Let's keep going down in Jacksonville today. In a game that I guess everybody's just circling Detroit. But here we are talking about a game about 7 out of every 10 tickets coming in on the road team here, those Detroit Lions who did I see they lost 12 or 13 games, and now we're saying, hey, easy victory by the Detroit Lions. Not the case even with the line because we opened up at -3, Kyle, across the board at SBRodds.com. We still sit at 3 across the board. There's no movement there. An over-under that opened up at 52.5 now sits at around 53. William Hill out of Nevada showing 53.5 in that game. But look, it's hard to take Jacksonville. I know what they're about. Really bad on defense. Let Minshew let it rip. He can steal a game. I understand that. But I think it comes down to the competence of the Detroit offense. Forget about how bad the Detroit defense is, Kyle. Forget about how bad Jacksonville's defense is. Yeah. I don't see really any way, unless Stafford has a horrible game, which I'm not anticipating. 3 weapons at wide receiver, good running game, decent offensive line, and he's a gunslinger, and not getting much resistance from the defensive end. The 53 looks like that same number, which was in that same realm we talked about last week with the Houston Texans, and the game ended up staying under, but not for the fault of nobody had chances. You missed 2 field goals and you fumble in the red zone. You're not going to end up hitting a total. You need all those points to count. I don't see how either one of these teams honestly slows this down. I would be shocked if both of these teams don't reach into the mid-20s, therefore giving me the 53. But something is just pulling me off of the Detroit Lions saying, I can't trust him as a favorite in this. I've seen it so many times, and I like a team that actually knows how to win. It doesn't seem like they know how to close anybody out and win football games, even though they're playing a really bad football team today.
Yeah, and God, I hope you're wrong because it's one of the picks that kind of makes me sick this week, but I went ahead and did Detroit -3. I'm just not impressed with Jacksonville. They seem to be getting worse and worse and worse as the season goes on. They had that nice week 1 performance against the Colts, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. And then they embarrass themselves against Miami. They look terrible last week against Houston. This is the healthiest Detroit has been. I know Golladay played a couple of games, but now he's had that extra week off. He is fully healthy. There's nobody in that Jacksonville secondary that can deal with Kenny Golladay. Then you talk about Marvin Jones. TJ Hawkinson is starting to roll around. So I got the Lions. I'm with you. I think there's points in this game. I think they both get in the mid-20s. I could see myself going the over in this game if I were betting at the 53s and the 53.5. Even seeing a couple 54s out there now as we sit here. But I like the Detroit Lions. I don't feel great about it, but I did put my money where my mouth is earlier in the week, and I bet it. So let's go Detroit, and let's go Matthew Stafford. I got him in DFS as well.
Nephesis in the chat box. Patricia had 2 weeks to prepare for a bad team. It's win or lose your job today. We've been hearing a lot about that, of the rumblings coming through on social media saying, hey, and rightfully so, if you're going to go on a long losing streak and then drop a game to a really bad Jacksonville team, what's the point of you hanging around for the rest of the year anyway? And you take a look at, and we talk just defenses and recent defenses from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still going to be down their top defensive end, but Miles Jack is going to be able to give it a go in this game. Look at Cincinnati, who's struggled outside. I mean, we think of Joe Burrow and give him a lot more credit than what Cincinnati's output actually is doing this year. But they had 505 yards against this Jacksonville team. Yeah. Last week, Houston, who couldn't get it together, fires Bill O'Brien, 129 yards on the ground for Houston, which, again, 5.9 yards per carry. The week before, as I talked about, Cincinnati, 205 yards on the ground at 6 yards a clip. And then you flip it over to the passing. Cincinnati threw for 300 yards against them. And then Houston threw for 357 yards against this Jacksonville defense. The one thing I want to see out of Jacksonville is more deep shots today. DJ Chark's active. Laviska Shenault's active. So a lot of those guys that we were saying, hey, might be banged up a little bit early in the week. You want to wait till you get to the starting gate. Everybody is going to be in from a fantasy perspective on both sides. There's no reason to believe that we're going to turn into some ridiculous defensive effort in here and it ends up 21-17. I don't see it. Both of these teams should shoot it out. And again, I look for a wild fourth quarter, regardless of the score here, Kyle.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Matthew Stafford's one of those guys. He's one of those slingers in the fourth quarter, and Minshew will be doing the same thing. So you might get nervous if you bet the over on this. You might be sitting there after the third quarter at like 39 or, 40. It's 23-17 and you're nervous. But I expect points in the fourth quarter. I just don't think that both defenses are very bad. There's just no doubt about that. True. But I think the Jacksonville defense is much, much worse. And I think the offense has honestly been declining a little bit. I'm glad they're healthy. We'll see how much DJ Chark actually plays. He barely practiced all week, a limited basis on Friday. He was dealing with the chest issue 2 weeks ago. Now it's his ankle, channeling his inner Julio Jones, not staying on the field for the entire game. I think the offense has moved the ball. I just think Detroit is the better football team, so I'm going to take them at coming off the bye week, and I hope I'm right because I got some decent money on the game.
Yeah, no weather issues here either. Talking about the north end of Florida in Jacksonville, about 77, 78 degrees. Game opens up, light winds, about 8, 9 miles an hour. By the end of the game, you're seeing about 13 miles an hour. So nothing that's going to be, keeping you out. 25 mile an hour winds, heavy rains and downpours. You should get a clean shot here for a dome team coming south. That's about as good of the conditions as you are going to get, but a tough one here. It looks so easy. Like one of those games looks so easy. Look, you just got to get on Detroit. They should move the football. And then, oh my God, look at Minshew Mania out here just running wild against this defense that can't stop anybody. But we'll see if Matthew Patricia makes it back to the runway after the game tonight, or is he just going to take his own Uber home all the way back to Detroit? Let's keep going here in a dome on dome crime right here, Kyle. 255, 256, the Atlanta Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings. Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins going to get it going today. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on Minnesota. And as soon as the line opened up in the week, you're like, come on, man. I don't even care if Dalvin Cook's not playing in this game. Atlanta is cooked. They fired their head coach. We're getting COVID outbreaks. Like, this team really just doesn't want to play. But here we are on Sunday at 1 o'clock. They're going to play a football game. And out of nowhere, I don't know if this is a credit to Raheem Morris, who's the new interim head coach taking over for Dan Quinn, where Julio Jones is like, hey, man, I can't ever play. And then Raheem gets in and goes, hey, man, I need a favor out of you. And Julio's like, hey, you know what? I'm not even on the injury report this week. I'm ready to go, which take that with a lot of grain of salt because they really didn't practice this week, but he is going to give it a go. But how many times have you watched anywhere, ESPN, CBS, sportsbook.com, hey, Julio is injured. He's going to give it a go. Hey, guys, how'd Julio do? I think he left the third play of the game. Oh, thanks, Julio, for your participation, your $8,000 price tag in DFS, and I bet the over because you would be in the game. So take that again with a grain of salt. But as we take a look at the lines here going across the board, over under again opened up high, 56.5. Now we see it tumbling down to around a 53 range. The line hasn't moved all that much and actually has come down. 3.5 it opened up as, but it was 4 for primarily all week long, specifically when that COVID report came out and you figured Julio Jones wasn't playing. Now Julio's in, you get the Julio bump, it's down to 3.5. Are we trusting Atlanta? Because, look, I know Minnesota isn't a great football team, Kyle. We know that. Dalvin Cook's out their most explosive player. But Kirk Cousins, if you can eat with 2 wide receivers like he has against his defense, this is a day you should be able to eat out here. And Madison is a really good secondary running back choice, which probably will go over 100 yards today. Maybe not as explosive, but still damn near as effective. Are we still out here in these mean streets taking the Atlanta Falcons as a last-ditch effort?
Hell no. And so now I'm supposed to believe in the Falcons more because they promote their defensive coordinator. from a defense who has been absolutely embarrassing in all situations. And now I'm supposed to believe in the Atlanta Falcons on the road. And yes, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings are world beaters either, but they put up an honest effort against Seattle and probably should have won that game. And who hasn't fell victim to Russell Wilson in a comeback victory in the NFL in Seattle? So I'm not going to fault them too much for that. Minnesota's defense is nothing to write home about either. Their secondary is not very good. Gladney and Hughes and Holton Hill and Cameron Dantzler are just not very good. But you mentioned Alexander Madison's a terrific young running back. I think he's a nice secondary option. And for those of you, maybe you're out there, you're playing in a 14-team or 16 team fantasy league and you're looking for a streamer. You don't have anyone because of the bye weeks. A guy like Mike Boone, the number 2 running back today for the Vikings.
Yeah. Cincinnati, baby.
Yeah, Mike Boone is not a bad player. And I could easily see him poaching a touchdown or 2. I just think the Vikings will be too much. The Falcons can't stop anybody. I know they've had sort of an emotional week out there in Atlanta. So if you want to go off of that narrative, I totally understand. But for me, I locked in Minnesota at -4 earlier in the week. I thought the line would move the other way. I'm kind of surprised it went this way. So I got some bad adjusted line value, if you will. But I still took the Vikings at -4. I feel pretty good about it. I'm not that nervous about it. Hopefully I didn't just jinx the living hell out of it. But welcome to the dark side today. I told you, it's Vader Day. Let's go Vikings.
Yeah, this will be really interesting because when you take a look at maybe you get a bump from a new head coach and Julio might be able to stick around for the first half. When you take a look at the full game at 3.5, the first ham line is 3. So maybe Atlanta gives a little bit of a boost, plays with Minnesota, then Julio dips out of the game early like we all think he will, and the bottom falls out for Atlanta, and Matt Ryan has him in the red zone, down a touchdown with 3 minutes to go, and he throws a dumb interception in the end zone, and you get that cover from Minnesota. So if you're looking for like a contrarian type play, which again, I don't advise, I'm not taking it, but if there was any bump from a coach being fired and Julio being back, so at least you know he's going to start the football game. Maybe you take it and say Atlanta's going to play with them in the first half and then the bottom falls out in the second. But outside of everybody and their grandmama taking the Minnesota Vikings as well as the Detroit Lions, and those, look, everybody takes them and then you scratch your head and go, well, Kyle, why isn't this like 10.5? They're still like basically just to win the football game for Minnesota, and you have yourself scratching at the end of it. But again, I'm not advocating for taking dead football teams. And you take a look at Detroit, who might fire their head football coach. They look like a dead football team, even with all those weapons. You look at Atlanta, who already fired their coach. They're not going to the playoffs. So how many of their players go, man, it's time to make business decisions for the rest of the year. Hey, we're in a tie game in the second half. Yeah, I'm good. Going up against that ball. How about this alligator arm? Yeah, I'm not getting hurt because we're 0-5 at this point. We'll see how it plays out. But if I had my druthers, Minnesota does have a good offense. Atlanta does have a bad defense. Maybe Atlanta can catch a couple balloon balls downfield from Matt Ryan. I still don't. Do you advocate taking the under in this game? Do you agree with that drop from 56 to 53? I mean, forget about 56 is high, but I still think it plays more to an over than it does an under here.
Yeah, I think it plays to the over. And, you know, I kind of fell into this trap last week with Atlanta and Carolina. It didn't even get close, but Minnesota at home, they're going to put up points. The Falcons are going to throw the football a ton, so you're going to get extra possessions if they can catch it. You know, Calvin Ridley and Russell, their entire cast of wide receivers and tight ends are healthy. There were some questions about Hayden Hurst even earlier in the week. He's going to be there. Matt Ryan has got to show up. He's been under the gun all week long. He's looked absolutely terrible. It's time for Matt Ryan to show up and put up some points. I think this is one of those, 31-24 type of games. So I think you get over that 53.5. It's going to be a sweat. I think you'll be rooting for points in the fourth quarter, definitely. But I do think they get there.
I do as well at that point, but just, going over looking at it, they look so easy to start, like Detroit, easy. Let me just load them up with Minnesota, easy. And we're talking about two teams. And again, Minnesota isn't a very good football team, and neither is Detroit. And we're like, man, that's a really easy victory to pick up there. So we'll see how it plays out up in the Dome. Still don't think there's any fans in Minnesota. I don't believe so. But even if there are, 5,000, 6,000, like we finally get fans here back in Philadelphia, but only about 5,500 total. It doesn't really make a difference, but it is nice for the players that say, hey, you know what? Look, there's somebody up there actually cheering for me today, and see if you can make your way of it. Also, guys, if you miss out on any NFL action here during the week, if you missed our Tuesday show or Thursday show, obviously our Sunday show, it's right there, sbrpicks.com/NFL. And I promise you, if you click that link, you will not be rickrolled. And if you know what rickrolled is, you're probably too old, and probably just as old as me and Kyle are. So you understand that reference here. Let's keep moving to a game that's in the NFC East, Kyle. And I got to say, a win by either one of these teams, maybe a win by Washington, and they're the best team in the NFC East after today.
Right.
Could happen. Now we're taking a look at Allen and Jones, two quarterbacks, athletic, two young quarterbacks, haven't really found their way all the way yet. 50-50 ticket split. The Giants open up at 3.5, and I agreed with them opening up at 3.5. But who is betting this Washington football team down to -1s across the board? What are we looking at here? Like, I'm dumbfounded by this. I don't have any wagers on this game, but now I see the Giants at -1 at home with high school Joe Judge, who's probably putting it all into this game, probably toilet papered his players' houses because of how big this game is, because he wants his first win in the NFL, just like a high school coach would do. I don't agree with that line movement down. What am I seeing out of Washington? Are we saying like their defense is good and it's going to come up with stops? Are we saying like Kyle Allen? Oh my God, Kyle, did you see him throw for 79 yards in about 2 quarters versus the Rams? And that's good enough to carry them to victory here on the road. I don't buy it. I'm sticking with the Giants. And that 41.5, I'm not buying either. Both of these teams stink, and both stink on defense. Somebody's got to get into the 20s to push this number above 42, right?
I guess. I want nothing to do with this game either. I suppose that's some sort of indictment on, at least they know that Kyle Allen's playing and you're not getting the 4-yard passes. Actually, 4 would be a deep ball by Alex Smith. And we got the Alex Smith we wanted last week. Remember, we talked about it and I was all excited. And then I turned from excited to scared to death. I did not like the kids being in the stands. That scared the living hell out of me last week. I thought that leg was going to fly into the stands. I was very concerned about it. I guess the best thing you can say about this game is at least a team from the NFC East is guaranteed to win this week unless they get a tie.
How do you know? We might get ties. Yes.
Yeah, you might
destined for ties.
You might get this. You might get a 13-13 tie in the worst game of the slate. My biggest fear for this game is I'm going to have Red Zone on. I'm going to try to relax and soak it all in and hope good.
But they might not even appear on Red Zone today, though.
Or they appear way too much. It's like, hey, Daniel Jones and the Giants in the red zone. Here's Devontae Freeman. And then, God, and that will just make me – I will be hammered by noon Pacific time if that happens, because that will be very, very depressing. But no, this game's a dumpster fire. Both these teams are dumpster fires. You got to favor the Giants slightly. At least they have some continuity. They're not, doing this, roller coaster of quarterbacks, Haskins, being sick, then Alex Smith and Kyle Allen, then Alex Smith and Kyle Allen again. I'll pass on all that. Give me some of the continuity with the Giants. They did show up okay last week against another dumpster fire in the Dallas Cowboys, and it wasn't just because Dak Prescott got injured they were in the game, because that was later in the game. So, I'll lean the Giants, but for me, my money ran away from this like I run away from commitment.
Yeah, like what are we looking at here for let's just say with the Washington football team right now, right? So is our angle, they beat the Eagles opening day, who the Eagles are a really bad football team, and specifically week 1, still injured, week 6, still injured today. And then you could say they played 4 good football teams, but just because you play good football teams, it's not like they were even in these games. Housed by Arizona, housed by Cleveland, housed by Baltimore, and housed by the Rams. So if we're going to give them credit for playing good football teams, you got to take away points, because just because they play good football teams, they got waxed by every one of those. And then are we going to say from the Giants, I mean, hey, banged up Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Francisco, the Rams, and Dallas. And at least in the last 2 games, you fought the Rams and you fought the Dallas Cowboys. I think I'm coming home, and I think it's one of those games where the Giants got all hands on deck, man. Like, if they don't win this game, they're not going to win next week in Philadelphia. Does it turn into, hey, Joe Judge, you're 0-11, bro. Time to hit the streets, take your 5-year paycheck, and get out of town and head back up to New England and disappear? Because this is a game, to me, the Giants have to have as a franchise, as crazy as that sounds.
It's crazy. I think I do not like loving the Giants. I even used Lawrence Taylor this week to try to boost them up some. Look, I'm rooting for Washington. I prefer I like Ron Rivera quite a bit, and
me too.
I feel bad for that team with no name. I think it's just awful. Like it's just I feel bad for their fans, I should say, not for the team, but I feel bad for Washington fans. But no, the pick's got to be the Giants here. Of course, like I said, I'm staying the hell away from it. Awful game, but good for the NFC East. They might get a winner this week.
No, it is. 450 people watching live in the chat box right now. We do thank you guys for tuning in, spending your early afternoon with us as we get ready for our 1 o'clock NFL games. Let's keep on going down this rabbit hole. And after a couple games here, mixing and matching and trying to stay in order here. How about Houston and Tennessee in this spot, right? Deshaun Watson versus Ryan Tannehill. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on Tennessee. But are we rested enough as Tennessee, right? You have that 16-day layoff. You come play a football game, but You didn't play a football game, Kyle, on a Sunday. You didn't even play on a Monday. You played on a Tuesday. Now you got to come back and play a division rival on a Sunday on a quick week here. Getting some guys back healthy and off that COVID list is a plus. Houston picks up a victory last week. Now they don't have Bill O'Brien, coming in with a little bit of a standing, so to speak, saying, hey, you know what? Bill O'Brien's gone. We won a game. Let's see if we go on the road and make it 2 in a row and see what happens. Over-under this game opens up at 55. Has crashed down to that 52 range. The line hasn't moved, though. SBRodds.com still listing 3.5s across the board. To me, Tennessee seems like the much, much better football team. Houston's defense isn't very good, so I think Tennessee should be able to move the football, and also Houston should be able to move the football as well. All the wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, and quarterback healthy, and without Bill O'Brien, I don't see any reason why it doesn't get over 52 here. I really don't.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I guess the one concern is that if Derrick Henry just gets on a roll, which he did the last time these teams played, he had an absolute monster game. Maybe it slows the pace down a little bit in this game. Earlier in the week, I was trying to find a way to take the Texans, and I still do feel like there's a little bit of grease in here. I'm a little bit nervous about Tennessee on the short rest. And I think, that first win for Houston last week, maybe give them some confidence. This is a tough one for me. The smart play is the Titans at home 3.5, but I'm worried about the short week. I do think Houston can move the football on the secondary of Tennessee. Tennessee's secondary is a little bit vulnerable. I think you see some passes out of the backfield. They finally got Brandon Cooks involved last weekend, which made Donnie look awfully smart last week. Yeah. We're very happy about that Brandon Cooks call over there in the comment section on the DFS show. But it's tough. I'm leaning Tennessee. I do like the over in this game, 52.5. It's weird. Isn't it weird now when you see anything under 54, you're like, oh, it's kind of a gift in the NFL. It's a little bit strange. But I do like the over in this game. This is another fun game in the morning. Good slate of games this week. I'm leaning the Titans, but I do not mind the money line value on the Houston Texans. If you want to take a shot on that, I don't think you're crazy. And, you got it. Hey, scared money doesn't make money. It's dark side week, so, a money line play on Houston I don't think is terrible, but the smart play is probably the Titans.
Yeah, here's what the M's on the chat box here. Can't find a way to take Houston, no way. And I sort of agree with that because sometimes you have to really meld yourself into what you want to look at, because typically in a 3-point line, a 3.5-point line, a 4-point line, even up to 6, the team that wins the game is probably going to cover the game as well. So if you can't make a stance, like if we're trying to wiggle in and be like, hey, I think they can play well and they can keep it close, that's no way to bet an underdog at 3.5. When you're talking about underdogs like the Philadelphia Eagles that we'll talk about in a minute, 10, you can use that. Hey, I think they'll be close. I think it'll be a 1-possession game. But if we're talking about 3.5, you better have a path and an avenue to get a victory for the Houston Texans, as opposed to, I think Deshaun Watson will play well and in the fourth quarter will be a toss-up. That's not the way you want to operate with a 3 or 3.5. I don't see Houston winning this game, but I do know a lot about rest and being ready for a game. And if you're playing, it's only been the Eagles played in 2010, and now you've seen a game in 2020. Before that, it was like 50 years before anybody played on a Tuesday. There's good reason, because it's not healthy. That means Wednesday, you're like, hey, let me just show up to the facility and get iced. Thursday, which is typically a Tuesday where you get a day off. Then all of a sudden it's Friday, and then Saturday, hey, I'm finally starting to get my shoulder back into motion. Oh, yeah, guys, we got a game on Sunday against a divisional opponent. It's hard to overcome, and that's the reason why that 3.5 is there. But I still think it's early enough in the season where we're not talking about, Kyle, week 14, 15, or 16 where they had to do this, where that attrition is already built in. I think they'll be rested and ready to go. And, again, I can't find a pathway to victory for Houston in this game, so I can't back them. I'll lean on Tennessee minus 3.5, but I do think we get some points here, and I like that over 52. Good game here at 1 o'clock, Kyle, in the Steel City, 261, 262. A limping Cleveland squad, which looks like they're all going to be there at the starting gate, which is the only thing I cared about when I put out my banker of the week, getting 4 points with Cleveland. Now, as I look across the board, it's 3s with juice. It's 51 as an over-under opens up. We now sit at 50s across the board. Odell Beckham Jr. under the weather. He's going to play. Jarvis Landry, hip injury. He's going to play. Baker Mayfield, rib injury, which maybe a couple weeks ago, Kyle, he would have got that needle shot up right here in the sternum and felt good and played. But there was another quarterback that tried that avenue and damn near killed him in Tyrod Taylor, and probably killed his career overall with how well Justin Herbert is playing. But you would still think he's going to have some meds and be able to play. But you're talking about 3 guys that need to be productive in this game. Maybe one hit away from being out, but I'm still going to stick with it. I can't say, hey, guys, hey, oh, I expected them all to be super healthy and play. No. I gave the play out of 4. I'm sticking with that. And I actually still like the game at 3. I think Cleveland goes into Pittsburgh, Kyle, and gets the outright victory over the Steelers today.
Wow. Well, this is one we disagree on greatly. And usually on these things, I tend to end up on the wrong side of the coin. But this time, I think we did this last week with the Colts and the Browns, didn't we?
Yeah. How'd that work out? Remind me, please.
Didn't work out great. Phillip Rivers channeling his inner, bad Tecmo Bowl quarterback, lofting it in the air. But this week, you mentioned all the injuries for Cleveland. I mean, Landry's going to give it a go. Beckham just got back with a team after an illness all week. And let's not forget, Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield were obviously teammates. That's the quarterback he replaced. So Tyrod Taylor's got his number on speed dial. I'm sure he said, I don't care what they tell you. Don't take that shot. You won't be able to breathe for 2 weeks and you might lose your job forever like I just did. It always happens to Tyrod Taylor. But no, Pittsburgh -3, 3.5. I got him at 3.5 earlier in the week. It's -3 now. I think Pittsburgh beats the brakes off of Cleveland. I will say this. If Landry and Beckham are able to give it a full go and are fully healthy, there are some matchup advantages in that Pittsburgh secondary. I know Pittsburgh has a great defense, but when you look at Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton, they are a little bit vulnerable on that left side of the defense and in the slot. So there are some avenues for Cleveland to move the football. But now you've got a very good pass rush, a good defense on the road against a Pittsburgh team who I know they haven't played anyone great, but they still have looked good. Nope, I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they do it quite easily by a touchdown or more. It's one of the picks I feel better about this week, and it's also the game I'm going to be watching so that hopefully I can get back some of my juju against Donnie here.
Yeah, we'll see. Because look, I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a good football team. They're going to be in the playoffs. But I look at the product of the season and what I'm actually getting out of it right now. They open up the season versus the New York Giants, and they beat them by 6 or 10 points in that one. If you remember, we watched that live. A tip ball interception in the end zone in the third quarter really shifted the balance. Then you play the Denver Broncos, who started the game with a rookie or basically a young quarterback in Drew Lock. Then went to Driscoll, who absolutely stinks. Then you went to the Houston squad, Houston Texans didn't have a win on the year, and Bill O'Brien's basically walking the plank to get fired. You only beat them by 7. And I preface this by also Denver was in the red zone down 5 points to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then last year, the Eagles come to town with absolutely 0 on their football team and carry them into the fourth quarter. And it looked like, one late, long missed field goal. And the Eagles were going to beat the Steelers in their own building. I don't trust the Steelers yet. They're going to play up in competition. That defensive line for the Steelers is awesome. They get pressure. You know what the perfect tonic for holding off a great defensive line? Having a great offensive line, which Cleveland does also. Yeah. And the thing I like about this game, it sounds kind of dumb, right, on its face when you look at this.
Sure.
The fact that Baker Mayfield is injured and can't feel like dangerous and I got to make every throw, maybe they call the game different. Maybe they lean on the running game. Maybe they say, Baker, we don't need you to throw in that double coverage there where you're rolling out of the pocket, you throw against the grain because you're feeling great and it gets intercepted over the middle. Maybe he plays even more conservatively in this football game, which I think is a good thing. And I'm going to stick with my initial prognostication. I'm going with Cleveland's game. I think they come into Pittsburgh. I think they get that upset winner. Now, let's talk about the total in this game. Opens up at 51, drops to 50. Now, with the preface I was just talking about right there, I don't know how open Cleveland's offense is going to be. Now, I'm prefacing this again by saying I like Cleveland to win this football game. I do think they do that. But let's take a look in real time in the real world. Jarvis Landry runs around. Oh, man, my hip's a little bit damaged. I don't know about this. Odell Beckham's like, I'm just cutting it out. Like, I can barely breathe out here. I'm getting over the flu from last week. And Baker Mayfield's like, hey, man, I took a shot to the sternum by T.J. Watt. I don't know if I can go. Forget about Cleveland winning the game at that point. How does that game get over if Cleveland is down dominoes throughout the game?
Yeah, exactly. And Kareem Hunt's been banged up all week as well. So it's a little bit tough. I actually think the Browns go under this 23.5 team total. And usually when I see a 23.5, I want to pump on the over. There's jokes for that. But I like this feels like a 28-17 type game. Ben Roethlisberger throughout his career, 22-2-1 against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have not been 5-1 since the wheel was still an octagon carved out of rocks. This is all telling me Pittsburgh, I think it goes under that 50. I don't think the game gets in the 50s. I think you see one team in the 20s and one team in those high teens, like a 28-17 game. That's the score I'm going to call. Now, if Cleveland wins the opposite and blows them out, then erase the tapes. But for right now, I got 28-17 Pittsburgh. I think it goes under the total. Just too many injuries for the Cleveland offense. And Pittsburgh's an aggressive defense, and they're at home. Cleveland makes me nervous this week.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. 1 o'clock game, and I'll certainly have my eyes on that game. 500 people watching in the chat box, guys. Thank you for doing that about 30 minutes into the show. We are hitting some big numbers each and every week, and it's a credit because you can see how Kyle and I both like to talk NFL football and bring it to you guys, but also we're nothing on the show without you guys in the chat box. So thank you for coming in here each and every Sunday, each and every Tuesday and Thursday, and checking out the channels. It's awesomely good stuff. Now, I would like to say this game is awesomely good stuff. I will be rooting and cheering. For how long, I don't know, because it hasn't been a very fun year for me to be rooting and cheering overall for my Philadelphia Eagles. 263, 264. Looks like about 60% of the tickets here coming in on Baltimore, and this line has really rocketed. Opened up at 7.5 earlier in the week. We're now seeing 10s across the board, and over-under dropping as well from 48.5 down to 46. And we talked about it on the earlier shows this week, Colin, Tuesday and Thursday, what it means to win in the NFL. And when you don't think you can win, you put your chips in for another day. What I mean by that is the next couple of weeks, the Eagles are going to start to play their divisional games, which mean a whole hell of a lot more than putting all your effort into trying to beat a superior team with a limping squad. 7 out of 8 offensive linemen are down. Outside of Jason Kelce, nobody in the chat box will probably name any of the Philadelphia Eagles starters on the offensive line. Obviously, we know wide receivers coming into the season, top 4 of them will not play today for the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't have anybody of any name at linebacker, and it looks like they're loading up for Thursday Night Football against the New York Giants when they come to town. No Alshon Jeffrey, no D-Jax today. They're going to sit out and get the extra day's rest. So when you put that white flag up to a football team, yes, they're professionals. They all get paid every Tuesday morning, a nice huge chunk of direct deposit right into their bank account. But sometimes you have to look at this lineup versus this lineup and see where it makes sense. But again, you'll see us talk about this every week. It's not about, hey, I'm going to pick Baltimore to win the game. It's a 10-point spread. You're going to have to balance that effort. And I actually believe that the Philadelphia Eagles will cover that 10 points today, not because they're as good a football team as the Baltimore Ravens, or do I even think they can win the game. It's how Baltimore operates. They're going to be on the ground. They're going to make dynamic plays on the ground, but that's going to chew up a lot of clock. I don't think it's going to be a lot of 4 plays, 76 yards, which included a 53-yard touchdown pass over the middle. I look for them to secure this game and continue to ground and pound, which leads me to an under, but also to a lower scoring football game. Because again, I don't think Baltimore has to press the gas to beat the Eagles today, Kyle.
Yeah, you essentially took the words right out of my mouth. And when you look at Baltimore, I mean that's what we do. But when you look at the Eagles as well, say what you will about the team and all the injuries, they can get after the quarterback. So I don't expect Lamar Jackson to be comfortable in the pocket. This isn't going to be Lamar Jackson running around doing whatever he wants. Oh, and then I'm going to drop back and hit a nice deep ball to Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, etc. He's going to be moving and running out of the pocket because he's getting a lot of pressure from a Philadelphia Eagles defense that gets after the quarterback, put top 5 in the league in sacks, maybe even higher than that, top 2 or 3. I can't remember off the top of my head at the moment. The mimosas start to kick in, and I forget all the stats that I had memorized throughout the week. That's why we're.
And look, it looks like this will be Kyle's last show. So
and that's it. The E-Man will be out here tomorrow, so enjoy the new crew on Monday Night Football. But no, they're just really good at getting after the quarterback. So you're right. I don't think Baltimore has to do a ton to win this game. I do think the Eagles cover. I stayed away from this game. There was just too much. You got 7 starters or so for Philadelphia sitting out. Lamar Jackson doesn't look great. Hasn't looked great in a few weeks. It's going to be the running game for Baltimore, the occasional pass here or there, and the defense that wins this game. So this could easily be one of these, 21-13 type of games. I don't think there's any way they get into the 40s in this game. I like the Eagles to cover, and I like the under, but me personally, my money stayed away from it.
And look, it's a tough one here because I had the same look last week for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm like, man, they're going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have nobody on the offensive line. That pass rush is going to annihilate them. They have no playmakers that can get down the field. And then fast forward, 3 hours later, they scored 29 points and almost beat the Steelers. So I scratched my head, and it's almost like you want to get back involved with that type of wager and say, well, wait a second, how are the Philadelphia Eagles going to move the football against a really good defense and an offense that is better than theirs? And then fast forward to the end of the day, and they put up 24 points in this game, which is hard because even last week, looking at that 17.5 or 18 the Eagles were sitting at as a team total, I honestly didn't think they could get there. And even at the first drive of the game, the Eagles go backwards, and then on the third down, TJ Watt picks up a sack, and it's like, Eagles might not even get a first down today across midfield, but yet Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward and guys you never heard of are just getting after it. But you have that same thing today, and I don't know if that's going to be good enough for maybe for like a 1 week surge for Fulgham. But would you be shocked? I would be shocked if Fulgham goes 8 for 120 and a touchdown this week against the Baltimore Ravens. They see him on tape now. They're not going to be surprised that, hey, who's this number 13 over here catching passes out here? So we'll see how it plays out in the game. But I do think the Eagles get the cover, and I think you're right on point in that the winner is going to have like that 24 points or less. I'm rooting for the Eagles, as I always do, and I do think they cover, but I don't see this any way. I would be really surprised, again, if they were able to beat the Baltimore Ravens. Even though Lamar Jackson not playing at an elite level, maybe still has some lingering knee issues we'll see today, but you need to have a good linebacking core to stop that read option running game that Baltimore has, and the Philadelphia Eagles just don't have that here. Let's keep going. 1 o'clock game. And again, it seems like every game is a 1 o'clock game today, which is great. So if you have the DirecTV dish or if you're watching Red Zone, they are going to be spinning that wheel left and right. So DFS players love it. But then you get to 4 o'clock and you're itching for all these games. Like, what is going on out here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm watching the Jets and the Dolphins. Come on now. So we'll see what happens in those games. 1 o'clock, 265, 266. Cincinnati goes into Indianapolis. Going to be Burrow versus Phillip Rivers. And if we take it across the board, -8s turned into 7.5, some 7s with heavy juice out here. Over under 46. The Bengals looked atrocious last week against the Ravens in the rain. A lot of people looked atrocious like that. But does Joe Burrow able to go on the road and pick up a victory over Indianapolis? Now, look, the Colts were stung last week going in trying to play the Cleveland Browns, which I thought they would have issues in that game, but it turns out they had a lot more issues than I initially thought. But it was still close in the fourth quarter. How bad Phillip Rivers played in that game still had him in there. Anthony Costanzo coming back at left tackle in this game. Darius Leonard still not going to play middle linebacker for the Colts. Do you think they can go in here and steal? I don't think they can go in here and steal a game, because even if you look at the games that, overall that have been played in Indianapolis, let me just try to bring this up really quick to get an overall look. The wins that the Colts have had, fairly impressive at home. Minnesota, who's playing good football now, whacked them 28-11. The Jets, who stink, well, they stink, and they made them stink 36-7. So they do play well at home here.
Yeah, no, and the Darius Leonard injury is big. And do I think the Bengals can win? No. Do I think they can cover 7.5? Probably. Yeah, I think they can. I don't think there's anything special about this Colts offense. Phillip Rivers, there's a lot of talk. He might be playing for his job. He looks absolutely atrocious. Hasn't thrown for over 250 yards in 4 straight games. If you're the defense of the Colts and you're playing out of this world, one of the top, they were the number 1 ranked defense for much of the early part of the season. Now I think they're 2 or 3, something like that. You got to start to get frustrated. Phillip Rivers is stuck in the pocket. He makes terrible decisions. He's lofting the ball up, giving up turnovers. He's one of only 3 quarterbacks in the league with more interceptions than touchdowns. 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions through the first 5 weeks of the season is not going to get it done in the NFL, especially when you're playing in a division without great defenses. So, and then you turn around and you look at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's been sacked more than any quarterback in the league. He's being absolutely abused back there, and you just don't want that to keep happening to the number 1 overall pick. We've seen this happen before with Mr. David Carr, and we don't want it to happen again to Joe Burrow, who seems like he has a ton of potential. So I think the Bengals could cover. This is another game where I stayed away from. I like the under. I actually have a little play on the under on this game. I don't think either offense is very good. You're going to see a lot of Joe Mixon and Jonathan Taylor in this game. Slow-paced game. I think it goes under. The Colts win. It's closer than it should be. I don't mind the Bengals covering, but this is a game I just want to stay away from. There's too many unknowns for these two teams. The Colts should be good, but they're just Phillip Rivers so bad lately.
But here's the counterpoint I'd like to make off it, because when you take a look at the Indianapolis Colts, right, you're not happy with their play the last couple of weeks, but also you're talking about 2 elite, super elite pass rushers coming after an immobile quarterback, talking about the Chicago Bears and the Cleveland Browns, right? Now you're going to play a defense that is absolutely horrendous, can't rush the passer. Your 5 stalwarts up front are now all back intact on the offensive line. The one thing that Cincinnati can't do is stop the run. So now those play action fakes are really going to mean something with maybe T.Y. Hilton, who actually had a lot of targets last week, can get open downfield against a porous defense, because you're not going to be able to do a lot against Chicago, even though they did pick up a win in that game. You're not going to be able to do a lot with Phillip Rivers on the road versus Cleveland, because he's going to be under pressure for a majority of the game. Phillip Rivers standing back in the pocket where everybody's allowed to run around, that's a little bit more palatable. And as I said, it's all banked off of the running game. If you're going to be able to run at 5 yards per clip today at Cincinnati, like I think they're going to do, I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to have that much, pressure in the pocket and high throws that he's going to have to make. And oh my goodness, let me just throw a shot put out here because these two defensive ends are going to kill me. I think Indianapolis and Frank Reich are going to have a very good game plan where they play much, much better at home. As I said, scoring 28 points against Minnesota and 36 versus the Jets. I think they come up, but also you're talking about still being able to hang on an under. They're a very good defense, Indianapolis, and I haven't seen all that much out of Cincinnati's offense that's going to show me, outside of a Jacksonville game, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, that they're going to be able to move the football. So maybe it does stay a little bit under in that regard, but I do think the Indianapolis Colts should be able to do whatever they want on offense here.
Yeah, I hope for Phillip Rivers' sake they do. Look, I love Phillip Rivers, but you mentioned they were stoned on offense, and I'm not sure if they were stoned. I'm just wondering if, Phillip Rivers has about 45 kids, so one of those kids might be selling him a little bit of that happy lettuce. Maybe he was stoned for that game. I know he's a deeply religious man, so I'm only kidding here, but my God, he looked absolutely dreadful. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed. He's one of my favorite players. I love the trash talk. I love the guts. Watching him play on a torn ACL in the AFC Championship game 15 years ago or so was pretty cool. But, man, he just looks shot, and I can't trust that Colts offense to put up a ton of points, but they will put up more points than the Cincinnati Bengals, who look absolutely lost on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and again, I love the coaching staff for the Colts. They'll be right and ready. And when we're talking about aging quarterbacks, right, how do you want to play for an aging quarterback? If you had to make a picture, you say, you know what, put me in a dome, check, and put me against a team that stinks on defense, check. And oh yeah, by the way, have them not touch me the entire game, check. So if you can't get it go, put it this way, Phillip Rivers knows the score, right? He's making $25 million this year, and they know the Wolves are out to get him. Like, hey, why don't we just put Jacoby Brissett in the game? You don't think he's looking at this game going, now's my shot here. Let me go 20 for 27, 285 yards and 2 scores, and let's put this team away because I don't want to hear the critics. If he struggles in this game against the Bengals, he's not going to be starting for the remainder of the year. So that's the way I'm going to play it on that game. Another 1 o'clock game, the COVID special, as we like to call it here at sportsbookraview.com. Denver and New England. Drew Lock and Cam Newton, one injured, one coming off the COVID list. 8 out of every 10 tickets here still showing up on New England. How about this line movement? Opened up early in the week, roughly around 9.5. I'm seeing 7s across the board. Are we believing in the Denver Broncos today, Kyle? Is that what's going on out here?
Absolutely not. Possibly the worst offensive line in the entire league. Now you're going up against and you're bringing back your injured quarterback. No Melvin Gordon, no Noah Fant, your 2 best weapons on offense. The Patriots should beat the absolute brakes off of the Denver Broncos today. Doesn't mean I think a lot of points will be scored. I just don't know how Denver scores. So your number 1 weapon is now Jerry Jeudy. The Patriots go, okay, we'll throw Stephon Gilmore on there. Oh, you want to run him around and throw him in the slot? We'll put J.C. Jackson out there. Absolutely no chance. I see in the chat Denver might win outright.
There you go.
Hey, if you believe that, bet that money line. If you think they're going to win outright, don't do a lot. Make sure you can afford the loss because they are not winning this football game. That offensive line, I am telling you, I would pee myself if I had to stand behind that offensive line. That is a scary bad offensive line. Now you got a Drew Lock coming back from injury, thrown to Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, and oh, good Lord. No, thank you. Give me the Patriots. Give me the Patriots all day. I didn't make a bet on this game. I wish I had earlier in the week. I wasn't sure if it was going to be played after all the stuff happened, and I just didn't want to deal with it mentally. Too many things to go with, and I was too tired. But I like the Patriots, and I like them pretty easy in this game.
I do think the Patriots win this game. The only one point of contention I would have is New England's, being COVID and injury. The offensive line is a little bit shambles, but you're not going to have a statue back there like a Brian Hoyer that's going to be playing this week. Cam Newton will be back, and I do believe he's going to be healthy. We'll be able to get away from that pass rush and also make some plays in the running game himself. Julian Edelman set the play in this game. So I think the weapons are there for New England. But if we're taking a look at the total in this game, New England never just reminds me of, boy, let's really get after it. So 45 is a low number in the NFL. It's not bad weather up in New England, but I just see one of these games where it's churn and burn, methodically move the football down the field on both sides of the ball. I like the under in this game, and I'm not an under guy at all.
Yeah, no, betting on the under sucks, but I actually agree with that. It's going to be an under. It's might be the least exciting game on the whole slate. I'm telling you, Denver's just not going to move the ball. I need to look for some prop bets on over-under first downs because I don't know how many first downs Denver gets in this game. I don't think Drew Lock's very good. I know that offensive line is terrible. Good luck betting on the Broncos if you want to do it out there. our biggest fan, Jimmy, always complimenting my looks, by the way, and I appreciate that, Jimmy. If you want some headshots, let me know. But go ahead, throw your money on the Denver Broncos and enjoy losing that money this weekend because they are a terrible football team with no talent this week on offense and no offensive line. So enjoy that.
All right, 2 4 o'clock games we'll talk about. Then the Sunday night football game, 279, 280. Not a real need to spend a ton of time on this game. The New York Jets, just a matter of when they're going to fire their head coach, not if they're going to fire their head coach. And Miami playing some good football, shellacked those 49ers last week. And now we're taking a look at Ryan Fitzpatrick going against a defense that is quite vulnerable at this time. Some interesting line movement in this game. Opens up 8 with some juice early in the week, spikes up to 10. But now I'm seeing 8.5s and some 8s at sharp books across the board. Over under this one opened up at 47.5, now down to about 46.5, depending on where you're shopping at. But looking at it, there might be some rain in the forecast a little bit later today, but that's always Miami. You get a deluge of rain for about 15 minutes and the sun comes out. So it's as expected here, but looks like a lot of the rain was coming around that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock range, going to take a break and then might return for that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock range towards the end of the game. Looks like we're going to get Rashad Perriman back for the New York Jets to go with Jamison Crowder. So at least if you're Joe Flacco, you have some semblance of an offense. If you're under pressure, oh my God, I actually have real NFL wide receivers to throw to this week. You don't have any Le'Veon Bell, so you're going to lean on Frank Gore and some other younger guys. But it's really a matter of what Fitzpatrick's going to do in this game. What I mean by that is I don't think he slows down. I don't think even if, the Jets are, or I should say the Dolphins are up 10 at the half, like they're going to just switch to a ground game. Fitzpatrick is Fitzpatrick, no matter if it's 6 minutes to go in the first quarter or 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. He is going to be throwing in double coverages, throwing it deep, really pressing the issue. Both of these teams are going to be going on fourth down using analytics because why? The season is over, and let's see what kind of chops we have on each side. I do think this game goes over the total of 46.5. Boy, I don't want to be holding the bag and be like, damn, I can't even believe I bet the Jets. I'm not betting the Dolphins at 9 is what I'm trying to say. But having said that, are we fighting for Adam Gase in South Beach? Is the Jets like, hey, man, win one for the Gipper today or let's play really hard? I don't really think they care. They're pros. They'll cash a paycheck. But I can't see. I like the total. I can't see a side in this game. I can't make a clear path.
I can't take the Dolphins as a near double-digit favorite. That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, I also can't bet on the Jets. There's no way in hell I'm betting anything on the New York Jets. I do like the over. I think both these teams can move the football. What you have to, if you're taking the over in this game, you need the Jets offense to look competent. Of course, they released Le'Veon Bell. So now we're relying on Frank Gore, LaMichael Pirine, Yikes, and yikes. Good Lord. I'm taking the over in this game. I like a lot of DFS. My favorite prop play, someone had asked that in the chat earlier on the show. I like Devontae Parker over 61.5 yards receiving. When you look at that Jets secondary, Pierre Desir, Lamar Jackson, and Blasson Austin give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing perimeter wide receivers. Lamar Jackson, even filling in on an injured basis for Blasson Austin last week, gave up the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers last week. Devontae Parker is going to see either Austin, Jackson, or Desir on 80% of his routes this week. I think he goes over the 4.5 catches, and I think he goes over the 61.5 receiving yards, which is my favorite this week. So I think you can lock in Devontae Parker in your fantasy lineups, your DFS lineups, and I like that prop play.
271, 272, Green Bay, Tampa Bay. The game we are waiting for at 4 o'clock because the only other game is the Jets game, and we are not waiting for that game, obviously. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady in this game. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on Green Bay. Line opened up at 1.5. Now we're starting to see some 2s come back. We had some pick-ems out there for a couple days and also some -1s, but it looks like some money coming back on Green Bay. This is one of those games where you do want to wait because some guys are going to be testing things out on the field, which means they could only be one play away from sitting it back out. And that's Chris Godwin. That's Mike Evans. A lot of banged up guys that are really important to this game if Tampa Bay wants to win. But the one thing I do know is Tampa Bay does have the better defense over Green Bay. Now, Aaron Rodgers is the ultimate tonic for a really good defense because sometimes it doesn't matter how good your defense is. He's going to make the right options. Devontae Adams back in this game. You have an explosive running game. They should be able to move the football, but I'm going to stick with my stance all week long. If Tom Brady has his weapons in this game, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are going to beat the Green Bay Packers today. It's a high number. Coming down a little bit, though. We saw 55.5, 56s early in the week, but now we're sitting in that 54.5. I do think there will be points in this game, but the reason why I'm taking the Buccaneers, I trust the Buccaneers defense more than I do the Green Bay Packers.
And damn it, you took the words out of my mouth again. And if you go back and look historically, Tom Brady, I think he's 15, 16, 17-1 or something like that after a loss against the spread. He doesn't lose that often in his career. Look, when you're getting a team like Tampa Bay, who's an underdog at home, that's where the value is. Has Green Bay looked fantastic this year? Absolutely. Has Aaron Rodgers looked fantastic this year? Absolutely. Is Devontae Adams coming back? Yes. Can you make an argument for the Packers? Sure you can. But when I see a good team, we kind of sort of talked about this on the Monday night game a few weeks ago with Baltimore and Kansas City. When you see a team like Kansas City getting a plus number and getting points, you take the value. That's the smart play here. And so I agree with you. I'm taking Tampa Bay. I'm not going to touch that over under because it won't shock me if, the teams sort of clamp down on each other and it's a tight, tense game. This game could certainly have some home field advantage or tiebreaker implications in the playoffs. So there's certainly going to be some nerves there. But I like Tampa Bay at home. If I'm getting Tom Brady after a loss, after 10 days rest, you got Green Bay after a bye week, I say sit back, enjoy this game. And if you're looking for the value, you take the Bucs at home.
And it looks like I'm just watching ESPN right now. Randy picked Green Bay. Rex picked Green Bay. Teddy picked Green Bay. Matt picked Green Bay. And only Sam Ponder, the woman, the only smart person on that telecast, went with the Buccaneers. It should be a good football game. It's the reason why they put that at 425. And I'm going to stick to my guns here and go with Tampa Bay. Night game, Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers up in San Francisco. About 50-50 ticket split in this game. How about this line movement? Opened up at 3, went to 3.5. Now we're seeing 2.5s across the board for the 49ers. And I agree with it. I think you're getting another week healthier of Jimmy Garoppolo. That offense, from an offensive line standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint, from a running back and wide receiver standpoint, and a tight end standpoint, it's another week to get healthy for San Francisco. I think they'll score some points. I think their backs are up against the wall, and I think this is the game that San Francisco comes up. Do I think they can win the football game outright? Yeah, because I'm not going to take the 2.5 unless I can think that. But more importantly, I think we get points in this game. Even though if you take a look at DOA metrics and defenses, the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers come up in the upper half of the league. But with two elite play callers and two good offenses, I'm going to say they get over the 51 here, Kyle.
Yeah, that number makes me a little bit nervous, but I think I agree. I bet on the Rams, and a lot of that was just with my heart, hoping that I could jinx the Rams into getting a primetime win, and the 49ers could channel their inner Teofimo Lopez, who upset Vasil Lomachenko last night in a horribly judged fight. I had it as a draw. But nonetheless, it was a big upset. He's a plus 330 under the youngest 4-division champion. And that's what I'm hoping I get out of my 49ers tonight. They typically perform well in games where they're underdogs, especially at home in prime time. But I bet on the Rams, not just because I'm trying to jinx the Rams, but because they're a better football team. The 49ers defense is absolutely beat up. They have no pass rush to speak of now with all those injuries to the front seven. I know we got about 3 minutes to kick off. So the pick's the Rams. I hope the Niners pull it out. I'm hoping I jinx the Rams. But it looks bleak for my 49ers, and this is a must-win for them. You lose this game, the road to the playoffs is very tough, even with that extra spot in the NFC.
Yep, and nice time to put a nice little bow in the show. 3 minutes to go. So obviously I put out my best bet and banker this week already on the Cleveland Browns at +4. They're sitting at +3 today. Still like him at the +3. I think they do get the outright win. And also I'm going to double down 425. Can't go without picking the big game. I'm going Tampa Bay, and I'll take the 2 points here on game day. And I do also think they get an outright victory. Those are my 2 plays today on the show. Kyle, give me some plays here that these people can chew on real quick.
Yeah, I like Pittsburgh -3.5. I actually doubled down. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. I love Arizona -1.5 over the Cowboys. Andy Dalton in primetime is absolutely dreadful. I like one other pick I really like. I think Chicago and Carolina go over this 44.5. So that's another pick that I really like for today.
There we go. And tomorrow, keep in mind, folks, don't be surprised when you see a live bell in your notification box at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Why is that? Right. You got early Monday Night Football, and we will be live for the first game, Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Spend your early happy hour Monday with us tomorrow and help us cheer it on and watch it come in. So good times ahead on the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Over 500 people at one point were watching this show live. Get out to your kickoffs. Have some fun. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We are sportsbookreview.com. And this was your closing line show for Sunday. Good luck, fellas.